This right here, friends, is exactly my vertical when trying to dunk a basketball into a regulation height basketball hoop. Now, spoiler alert, it's not that high. So I was thinking to myself, how can I dunk a basketball into this hoop? Well, I kind of got this idea after attending Adobe Max and hearing the engineers that work on Premiere Pro implement this new feature into the software called the generative extend tool. And it allows you to extend a clip out past the edit point. So you could extend it 2 seconds before or after the clip even ends, and it will generate a video. For example, here's the clip that you just saw me working on. It's a hyperlapse around a concert venue during Austin city limits. And for the first part of it over here, you can see that there's a barrier on the left side. So I started right here, and there's actually a whole another stage to my left. So you can't really go that way unless I were to step in front of it. When I auto-generated, it basically took the stage out of the way. Now, there are some glaring obvious things that there is some AI generation right here in with the people per se, but there are some pretty impressive things that I didn't think that it would do, but it does. So for one, the signs move in the wind. The clouds also parallax or have that same perspective as if I'm moving around. And not only that, but the AI knows that I'm doing kind of a 180 around the concert venue, and it continues that progression in the beginning of the clip. So I didn't really start over there, but it looks like I started over there. And then I also generated the end of this and exported it and put it at the end. The sun was setting that you can see right here as I'm going over, so it gets brighter, but there's a tent right here. And I would like to point out that when I'm over here, you can see that there's a whole bunch of tents, so you can't really go into that area and shoot, or else you'll just be shooting into basically a roof or whatever it might be. So if I scroll on through and I generated, it has me go underneath the tent and then has me stand over here to the side, which I think is pretty cool. It has the smoke that's coming off the concert venue that would normally be used for the light show to help showcase those. And it has the right sun that would be happening. But if I were shooting this, I would have stopped right there and kept shooting the stage. I wouldn't have gone behind the stage, and the AI knows not to continue in a circle around the stage. Just some really cool features on one of the first clips that I ever used this on. But I wanted to take this idea and see what would happen if I cut off the frame as I'm jumping towards the hoop to see if I could dunk it. Not only that, but what also would happen if I was dribbling a basketball? Would it continue to dribble the basketball with the right kind of physics? This ball, it doesn't have very much air. So I want to see what happens with me dropping it and cutting the footage. Like, is it going to make the ball bounce? What's it going to do? So here we go. That was it. On the timeline, it's clearly labeled that it's AI generated. A couple things that I can think of off the top of my head that are some format things in order to get this to work are, it needs to be 1920 by 1080 or a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. It doesn't do 4K. Also only does the 2 seconds like I told you before, but it does extend out audio for, I believe, 10 seconds, and it will not extend dialogue. So when you extend something, it's just going to take the room tone or the background noise of whatever is happening in your audio and extend that out for 10 seconds. Now, the visuals, I mean, I do think they have some ways to go. It does a good job with the ball at the very beginning, and then it kind of formulates into a blob. The physics of it bouncing, it does bounce, and it goes back up to my hands. So, I mean, for people in movement, it may give a really, really telltale sign that you're generative extending, but for the things in the background, it does a pretty good job of keeping those consistent. So here's another example of me dribbling on the screen, but now I'm dribbling underneath the legs, and let's see what it does. What is it gonna do when I cut out? So you can tell when it turns to AI, but it gets my movement pretty well. The big thing to point out with this example is it actually added in the bouncing ball noises. Now it doesn't happen when the ball hits the ground, but there is a AI generated bouncing ball. I'll play it for you again and listen for it. What is it gonna do when I cut out? Let's see what happens when I run by. Oh, so that was definitely off, but let's see if with AI it will go into the basket, which would be awesome. Oh. Oh. So for this one, I just want to point out that on my original, the trajectory of the ball is obviously an air ball, right? So when I did my first iteration, look at how it continues the trajectory of the ball. It just knows that I'm going to airball that shot, and it does the same exact thing. The trajectory is almost similar to the original. On the next two, the ball just kind of goes into nothingness if I cut it earlier, but I just thought it was interesting that Premiere Pro or the generative extend knows that I'm not going to make the shot, so it just continues to airball it for me. Thanks, Premiere. Let's move on to see if it's actually going to continue me dunking the ball if I cut it off before I get to the hoop. So at this point, I'm coming to realize that it's probably not going to dunk the ball for me in this current form. But I did like the potential of this clip in particular. So it just jumps up and has me go back to the ground. But what if I were to maybe slow this down so I have more frames to work with? It's in slow-mo. And instead of me being right by the basketball hoop, what if I rotoscope myself out and then change the trajectory of me so I'm closer to the rim and then cut it off? What would happen then? So what I ended up doing is just that. I went to After Effects and I rotoscoped myself out. So I changed the trajectory with some position keyframes. Then I went through and rotoscoped out the shadow of myself so that kind of mimics what's going on. So after all of that, I ended up with a clip like this where I'm going up towards the hoop and I come down like that. And my idea is to cut off the clip about right here to see if it dunks it in the hoop. Let's see what happens. So I go up, I go for the dunk, and the answer is no. I do not dunk it. I just airmail it right on past the rim. And I'm getting close. And that's not the answer. So we got to do some more work inside After Effects to get this to do what I want it to do. First thing I'm going to work on is masking out my arm, because up by the rim, you're not going to have that like this. You're going to be dunking it. So I'm going to mask that out and move that. I may also move this arm in the ball so it goes through the hoop. So I go up, and right here you can see that I've masked out my arm to make it look like I'm coming up to the hoop. And the next thing I got to do is have the ball go into the rim. So I'm going to mask that out as I come into the rim like that, and have me go down and put those two clips together. After all those changes and a couple more, this is what the dunk looks like at this point. I mean, that's pretty good, right? I am using a hybrid of both VFX and the generative extend. So I do have the VFX of the ball going into the hoop via After Effects, but I'm using generative extend to complete my body's movement from the dunk to the ground. So if you look closely, I have this masked out, and I'm just using the generative extend to have my body kind of walk off like this. and just have it do whatever it needs to. And after seeing this result, I got to thinking, I mean, it is pretty cool, but let me see if I can make it better. So I opened up Photoshop, I took a plate like right here, and I started generating the outside layers to this basketball court so I could make this vertical for social media, and I ended up with something like this. Went back to After Effects, and I thought, it'd be cool if I had 3 of me doing this dunk, which you see going on right here. And then I had to make it vertical and add sound effects. And the final result of all of my labor of trying to get this to work is this. So I think at the end of this whole experiment and working with this tool for the first time is the idea of using the AI generative tool to help me create things, but it still couldn't create exactly the thing that I wanted. So I had to use my skill set to still use After Effects and Photoshop and Premiere Pro to create the final product that I wanted to create. And the generative extend helped along that process. It wasn't the final tool. Yeah, it's been a fun little experiment, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you like this content, leave me a thumbs up, and I hope you're out there living a life of abundance. Bye.